And now it is my pleasure to introduce our day chair. To most of you, if not all, you know more about our immediate past president, Gary Arworth, and he needs no introduction. Not just because he presided at our weekly meetings last year, but because he's an engaged Rotarian, present and committed to our club, and goes out of his way to connect with each of us. Although our paths did not cross at the time, we both grew up in Sioux Falls. Gary went on to school in North Dakota, where he met his terrific wife, Joan, and started his own business here in Minneapolis, American Reprographics, which he sold a few years back, but continues as a super marketing sales force within the country. As busy as he has been flying around the country, he never lost sight of the chance to give back and make a difference in the lives of the young people. But mostly we know him as the guy who is passionate about education and doing it right, to be sure our children are graduating. He made it his legacy during his presidency and has gone deep into the classroom to help kids and teachers. When he sees disparity, he figures out a way to close the gap. The shining example is the way several years back that he started bringing kids from Northern Ireland here to spend some time to build connections away from the war. Over the past couple of years, he has served as a mentor to high school principals. He's a man of many talents, an artist, and if you have not seen one of his watercolors, you really should. A great storyteller, but so often the moments he spends with his grandchildren are the subject of those stories. He now has 7 3/4, he says. He goes out of his way to connect with them one-on-one, teaching them to draw or paint and taking them on special adventures. I'm sure his 2 children, Gretchen and John, are thankful that he is their father. Happy Father's Day, Gary. I am pleased to introduce business owner, artist, and get real about education Rotarian, Grandpa Gary Marquardt.
You hear that, Mom? I would like to say that the speaker today is someone who, at this, which is often described as the finest podium in Minneapolis, has had some great speakers, and many of them, people would say they need no introduction. Rod Carew is certainly that. I've never seen such a crowd around the front table, and it's a pleasure after hearing about him for so many years to actually meet him. I won't go through all the statistics. You all know them better than I. I won't go through a lot other than what I know about Rod. I did not know anyone who knew Rod, or I thought I didn't. And you know, I was a football player. I ran into people, and one time I read that Rod Carew stole home, I think, 17 times. Is that right, Rod? 17 times. Now imagine, I ran into people, I had pads on, they had pads on. And oftentimes they didn't know I was coming, to be honest with you. They know you're coming, and you're going into a guy who's got pads, and you don't have them, and there's a 100-mile-an-hour fastball coming at you. But to do that once is amazing. To do it 17 times, I think we have to kind of question the sanity. And that's just the times he made it. How many times did you miss? Twice? Only twice. So, and so when John, my son who was here, was born, I thought about him being involved in sports, but he's a mathematician, he's a musician, he was involved in everything but sports then. Now we watch the games together, he's just as involved as I was, but as a kid it wasn't his forte. And as a father, you stop living your life through your kids and you start living their life through them. And I'm down in his room, and I don't remember how old you were, John, maybe 16, 17, and I look on the shelf, and here's a baseball. And I said, "You playing baseball with somebody? Because that would be an unusual thing." And he said, "Nah, Ted's Uncle Rod gave me this." And I said, "Really?" He said, "Yeah, I think he played for the Vikings or something." Rod freaking Carew? And he said, "Yeah. Have you heard of him?" I reached over the shelf, I pulled down the World Almanac, I threw it to him, I said, "Look him up." And he said, "Uncle Rod?" And I said, "Yeah." And he starts reading this stuff and he goes, "Holy smokes, holy cow." I said, "All right, A, this is the Rod Carew, right?" I said, "B, I've seen Rod Carew. He's not Ted's uncle." So sitting next next to Mike Otto down there is Don Knudsen. Don's a wonderful guy and an amazing veteran at Flag Day. These guys are both ex-Marines. Probably I shouldn't use the ex. They were Marines forever. And that was kind of how they met. And these two guys, when Rod came to interview with Calvin Griffith, he was looking for an apartment. Don was helping him. They found out they were both Marines. Don's car wouldn't start. And a friendship became a family membership. This is Uncle Rod Carew. Hell, it's Uncle Rod and my son. And so we bring to you today, to the finest podium in Minneapolis, one of the finest men to ever put on a Twins uniform, a great family man. We all witnessed the tragic death of his daughter a number of years ago, and the publicity that surrounded that they allowed into that very private moment. It resulted in over 500,000 increased names on the list of donors for organs for his daughter's leukemia. And that, I think, is a piece of Rod Carew that probably you're going to hear about, that this is a man who exemplifies the service above self motto that we have, and it's amazing. Before I bring him up here, I would like to just disclose and see if you can keep a secret. And remember, the four-way test is it the truth? When you finish dinner, no one look now. You have to be able to sit on a secret. When you finish dinner, I want you to look at the bottom of your chair. If there's a sticker on the bottom.
Bottom of your plate.
Bottom of your plate.
Your coffee plate.
Your coffee plate. Sorry, bottom of your coffee plate. Now you can look. If you have a sticker on the bottom of your coffee plate, then stop and see Tammy. Rod Carew signed a bunch of baseballs, one for each. I would like to introduce baseball great, a guy who never used the same batting stance twice, Uncle Rod Carew.
Thanks, ladies and gentlemen. It's great to be here. You know, Gary, let me tell you something about Stephen Home. I had a crazy manager by the name of Billy Martin. He's the one that talked me into Stephen Home. And the reason he did is because he said that there are times that the ball club might not be hitting and we might be in a slump. And if we got into the late innings, that since I ran so well, he would like me to try and steal home. So he worked with me in spring training, and I did it 7 times that year and got caught once. But on one occasion at the old Met, and this is, I don't know why I didn't stop after this, but I always gave the hitter a sign when I was coming. And my sign was to go to my belt, and they would answer me by touching their helmet. Well, on this occasion, Harmon Killebrew was at the plate. And we were facing Hoyt Wilhelm, who was one of the best knuckleball pitchers in the game. And we didn't do too well against him. So Billy wanted me to steal home early in the game to get us 1 run. So I flashed a sign to Harmon. Harmon answered me. And so I walked back to third base, and I knew it was going to be easy because with the knuckleball, it's moving all over the place, and the catcher wouldn't handle it well. So as I'm coming down the line and I'm sliding in, Harmon is about ready to take a swing. And he saw me and just kind of jumped back, and I slid in safe. So after he's at bat, he came back to the dugout and he looked at me. Harmon used to call me Junior. And he looked at me and he says, Junior, he said, I forgot. So I worked with some of the guys in the Twins organization. We used to caravan and go into North Dakota, South Dakota, Iowa, because it was such a vast area that had Twins fans. And I remember one night we were sitting at a father and son banquet, and Don Cassidy, who was in charge of us, told the story about what happened at Met Stadium. And they had made a tombstone out of cardboard to present it to me that night. And the tombstone it read, "Here lies Rod Carew, lying to left by Killebrew." I never stopped trying to steal home. I just continued, and I was fortunate enough to have done it 17 times out of 19 times in my career. And so I must have been nuts back then. But it's great. But it's great to be here, and I would like to get away a little bit from the baseball talk because even though it's something that I did and I enjoyed and I was blessed to have been able to do it, baseball was great to me and I enjoyed it, and I was blessed by my friend upstairs with a talent that a lot of other people wish they had. And I knew that baseball wasn't going to last forever. And I always tried to carry myself the best way I could on the field and off the field. And I was fortunate because I had two guys on the team that I really looked up to. Tony Oliva and Harmon Killebrew, two of my best friends. And as my career went on, I looked at Harmon and I looked at Tony and I saw the way they carried themselves, the way they treated people. And I remember Harmon telling me one time, it doesn't cost anything to be nice. And I figured that here's a man that was headed to the Hall of Fame and that was so well known throughout the country. And if he could say things like that and carried himself the way he did, you know, why couldn't I? And so that's what I started doing. And I started thinking about people, because especially young people, because I think it's so important. I think you'll hear athletes say that they don't want to be a role model. And it really bothers me because I think we are, you know, and we should be. Because I think if we can just change the path of a young person and to make him go on and do great things with his life, I think that's saying something. And I'll give you an example. I remember in 1973, I was in a small town in Iowa. And we were at this dinner in the evening, and it was a father and son type setting. But this little boy's dad couldn't be there. His dad was a traveling salesman, and his mom brought him. And he had on a nice bow tie and a nice jacket. And we all had to wear shirt and ties back then. We weren't allowed to dress the way the players are dressed today. We had to wear shirt and tie wherever we went. And so the little boy's mom came up and introduced him, and I said hello, and she said, now look at Mr. Carew's shoes. And my shoes were shiny because I'm a Marine Corps guy, you know,